All right then. One, two, three. Hi, my name is Nishant Mittal,
And I'm Sarthak Bharadwaj.
and this is the 12th episode of I Read This Book. We are very happy to have come forward with Ruchir Sharma's Democracy on the Road, which Sarthak has read, and I'm very excited to hear about it. Sarthak, what made you pick this up?
Oh, yeah, man. So, elections, especially global elections, are a complicated affair. And when we talk about Indian elections, they can be messy. I mean, India is called the largest democracy after all. Here, there are separate state issues, various political parties joining the fray, and so on and so forth. So, Ruchir Sharma, in Democracy on the Road, tries to make sense of all this chaos in a neat and comprehensive way and puts it forward in Democracy on the Road. And he draws on this from his 25 years of experience chasing every major election, and therefore, this book is replete with anecdotes, his big conclusions, and interviews with political leaders, and that's what makes Democracy on the Road.
That's very nice. So, you mentioned anecdotes, so I'm
Mhm.
actually looking forward to something interesting there. Can you tell me, let's start about Bihar? I'm sure it has a lot of them.
You hit the nerve right over there. And so, while yes, you're right, there is one very important take.
So I'll tell you why I asked about Bihar.
Yeah.
Because I am still puzzled that why or how somebody could rule over Bihar for
Mm.
like such a long time.
Oh my
I-
God,
It's it's a phenomenon, and I think it needs an explanation.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, I have just the answer for your question, surprisingly. So, why is it in Bihar that you see people with criminal antecedents being voted into power time and again?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very clear answer that Ruchir Sharma provides. He says that in Bihari prisons, more than two-thirds of the population are not convicts, but merely people who are under trials. They still haven't been declared guilty by the court. And a lot of Bihari people, that state being the hub of violence and whatnot, have been put in prison and have faced this abuse and have been later acquitted. And so they were imprisoned for a crime they never committed.
Or
So,
probably a crime which could not be proven.
spoken like a true lawyer. I like that.
Okay.
True. Yeah, of course. That's one aspect that we can't rule out.
Yeah.
So these people tend to develop sympathy for those who have faced similar abuse, and almost always believe that the person who has been put in prison is on wrong and frivolous charges, and due to that they elect him or her time and again into power. And
So
he
I
cites
like I like all post-dictive rationalizations. I find it inconclusive, but I do think it could be one of the reasons. Because in many cases, it's in many cases, it's beyond reasonable doubt
Mhm.
that the person is indeed a criminal. He's a
Yeah.
convict, and he is a murderer or a scam artist. But still, people have voted for him. But I will go with that explanation because
That
it's one
could
of the
be true.
many
That
explanations
could be true, but we cannot rule the fact out that in India there are indeed a lot of innocent people in prison who are not guilty. And since India does not recognize bail as a fundamental right, many are forced to be imprisoned, even though they might or might not have committed a crime. And this creates a sense of sympathy.
I would love if our audience from Bihar can comment on this. We'd
Oh
love to
yeah,
learn from you
absolutely,
firsthand because
absolutely.
we are basically bystanders. I'm from Bulandshahr.
Yeah,
Sarthak is from Delhi. We don't
exactly.
know anything about Bihar.
In fact, Ruchir Sharma cites a book for that example. It's called When Money Pays. So
When
if you
money
want
pays.
a fuller discussion on this, you can even read that.
All right. So coming to people voting for Lalu
Mm-hmm.
in consecutively for.
Mm-hmm.
What about other states which are slightly more progressive? Can you give me some insight on how they function? Let's say
Yeah.
Maharashtra or Andhra Pradesh or
Yeah.
something else.
Well, speaking of Andhra Pradesh, you make a very interesting point. And Ruchir Sharma has some very interesting takes on that matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, when Chandrababu Naidu,
Mm-hmm.
the now chief minister of that place,
He's not the
oh
chief
yeah,
minister.
the state guard,
Ex-chief minister.
yes, yes,
Former chief minister.
yes, former chief minister.
Uh-huh.
So he says that when Chandrababu Naidu was entering into politics, there was wide expectation from him, and international media was bubbling with enthusiasm given the fact that he was touted as a laptop chief minister and he was pushing for big economic reforms. So Ruchir Sharma and his team, when they spoke with him, Ruchir says that while Chandrababu Naidu sir was talking with them in person inside his van, he spoke of these big reforms, slashing food subsidies, making more progressive investments in public
So on.
healthcare and
Yeah.
so on. But when he goes out to talk with his voters, you see him adorn the attire of a more traditional
The usual
politician.
communal stuff is spoken.
Yes, or the populist measures which sell because Indian voters don't buy the development agenda. And even
They never did. They still don't. That's the
exactly.
point.
So Ruchir says that even states which have managed, or prime ministers which have managed staggering economic growth in terms of GDP, are still tossed out because the direct effect of a GDP growth isn't felt by the voters. What effect is felt by them? A rise in inflation. So if inflations are on the high, its effect is almost certainly going to be felt by the common man, and he or she is going to vote accordingly. We have examples of this. In 2014, Dr. Manmohan Singh was not elected because inflation was so high, especially in food. And back in 1998, the then chief Minister of Rajasthan, Shekhawat ji, was not re-elected for similar reasons.
Okay.
So that's an interesting take on the
I,
matter.
I watch this a lot because when diehard BJP supporters or somebody like, they are watching an intimate discussion with the Prime Minister or the people in power, they're talking about some serious economic stuff. They're talking about inland waterways. They're talking about, road development
Yeah.
and so on. But when they're talking to the regular general public on the big stage of lakhs and lakhs of people, they're talking the usual
Yeah.
stuff, which makes it very abundantly clear that Indian population, the majority of it is still not ready for serious developmental discussions
Yeah.
because we are essentially a very I don't know a better word for it, backward country.
You're very right. Backward might not be the right word. I think
I'm sorry.
No. It could be the right word depending on where you stand and how you perceive things. So, I think this can be the thought with which we can conclude because Ruchir Sharma concludes in this note in his book. He says that the Indian population and the Indian political diaspora is fundamentally socialist. So what you call backward, Ruchir Sharma says socialist. He says that when the forefathers of India at the time of independence could give to the people political freedom in the form of representative and representative democracy, why could they not give to India economic freedom? And
Why did they still adhere to socialism?
Yes,
They held on to it till they could.
absolutely. And he says that leaders like Manmohan Singh and P.V. Narasimha Rao only went for these reforms when the economy was in a crisis, not because it was their enduring or core belief.
Exactly.
So he says,
And that's exactly true because we didn't bring these changes because we wanted to.
yeah.
It's because we had no way else to go.
So he
And-
says,
and that's
with the situation of economy right now, let's conclude with this thought that Ruchir brings. He says that I don't expect any magic reforms from the powers that be, the governmental powers. If anything that can sustain the Indian economy is the entrepreneurial energy, which is the only thing which can subsist a steady growth for
Which
the
is
Indian economy.
growing, which is thankfully growing in the country. We have come forward from a youth which wanted to be in a government job,
Yeah.
which wanted to crack UPSC.
Yeah.
That used to be the goal of everyone, and it's still the goal of a lot of people, a lot of young people. But now we are seeing a seismic shift where people want to be entrepreneurs.
And that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
In the opinion of Mr. Sharma, who is a global investor for Morgan Stanley. So, of course.
Goldman? Or
No, he's Morgan Stanley. I checked.
All right.
Yeah.
I have watched Ruchir Sharma
Yeah, you can-
live.
yeah.
I was invited to a conference where he was one of the keynote speakers. That was before 6 months prior to the elections of 2019. And I heard him. He sounds like an extremely sharp person. It's incredibly interesting to watch him speak.
That's
and I'm
true.
sure it's incredibly interesting to watch to read
Oh yeah,
what he's written.
he's a brilliant storyteller, and he throws some hard facts in a very interesting book. If you're looking for a quick refresher on how Indian elections work, Democracy on the Road is the book that you should read.
Very nicely summed up. Thank you so much, Sarthak. This was the 12th episode of I Read This Book. If you liked it, please let us know. If you didn't,
Please
do
let
let
us
us
know.
know.
And
If there's anything we could do better,
definitely let us know.
Definitely let us know. We're very
And
passionate.
yeah, see you next
And
time.
See you next time. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.